Hello. We're at an amazing time, Sandra. We are in the middle of a turning point in history, in human evolution. On the one hand, we have these major breakthroughs in technology and consciousness and the ability to talk to people across the planet. And yet, on the other hand, the ecologists and the scientists are telling us we're entering into the sixth stage of mass extinction of species life on this planet. And it kind of gives you a quandary about what you need to talk about. I think we need to talk about this. What do you think?
I'm 100% with you. I've been in, I get around and talk to a lot of people, and had a conversation with a client just yesterday, and we were talking about the same thing, and I was laying some things on him. He's like, yeah, I agree with you.
That's great. Here, one of the things that helped me that we started to talk about was, sometimes I think there's this, first of all, there's this impulse in both of us that want to do more for humanity, right? We got this thing that's driving us.
Absolutely.
But what was really amazing is that I found a book where this person is responding to that same impulse, that whole evolutionary impulse to do good. And the good news is that person is also a boomer. And so I'm going like, wow, this is really, really cool. So anyway, I'd like to share that. This guy, his name is Terry Patton. I'm going to go ahead and do a share here. There, do you see it?
I do see it. And
yeah.
Thank you very much for introducing me to the book, because I've had some really wonderful thoughts going on that you and I seem to be on the same wavelength. So glad we can introduce this to our audience.
It's like magic, isn't it? It's almost like divine intervention. Well, anyway, Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and play a little of this video. It's a short video that I think the audience will also enjoy. So here we go.
The heroes that inspire me the most are people like Jesus, Gautama, Socrates, Gandhi, Dr. King, Nelson Mandela, because these revolutionaries changed the world with love.
Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
We're alive in a time in which everything is radically changing, and it needs that kind of heroism. If the human species is going to rise to meet our challenges, it's going to be flawed human people. If our whole way of being on the planet is self-terminating, we're going to have to change, or we're going to terminate. And that's a pressure that we're each of us living under. That pressure is actually doing us some good. It's actually the source of a new possibility. What I've been able to integrate in my new book, A New Republic of the Heart, is a kind of instruction manual. It's flexible. There's not only one way to do it. It'll speak to things you already know and already do. But it's about how we become the heroes that are asked for in this time. Our ways of being that change will always be evolving. And a whole life of engaging that wholeheartedly with other people who are engaging it wholeheartedly and who are willing to become different people. That's an inspiring opportunity.
Well, anyway, Sandra, let me just stop this share. Tell me about this. What do you think about the whole video and this whole book?
I like the introduction. I'm glad we found that we could share with folks. You can actually see the cover. You can recognize it. It's in the libraries. You can download it. I think that it has meaning for all of us. We are having conversations and thinking about these critical, I should say, doings. And if we can just talk to people in our tribes, in our villages, I'm quite sure we will find that we're sort of all thinking alike, maybe various degrees of it. So I am just really thankful for the awakenings. I'm thankful for you, Art, that you, the creator, have listened to the spirit and we're on the same wavelength. I think many people are.
Well, you know, I really feel like I'm blessed by the spirit kind of coming through me and as me and as you.
Absolutely.
And the way we're taken up, I really do feel like, you know, this book is a really good book because it's not only about the outer work that we need to accomplish, okay, in terms of dealing with climate change and major systems transformation, but the inner work, okay, to build the kind of the resilience that we need to have. Because we talked before in our first show about this predicament being so big, so wicked, that a lot of people kind of avoid it. It's like, oh man, I can't even think about that. That's so big to tell me that I might not exist, or my kids might not exist, or my grandchildren might not exist. You know, we kind of go on and say, well, I just need to deal with that. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, this could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I'm very, you know, pessimistic, then I'll bring more of that pessimism on, you know, the kind of like the law of attraction, whatever I'm thinking about. So people don't think about it. But what's so good about this book is it gives you a vehicle, you know, by going into the internal work to do the outer work that we need to do. Now, what about that outer work? Did you get to chapter 10 in that book, and in terms of what they talked about?
I did. And we touched on it a while ago where we were talking about families, family gatherings, social gatherings. It's like when that happens, and I'm going to consider them our tribes, our social settings and so on. I've always wanted to get into deeper conversations with them. But that's always been unsustainable because we have obstacles and roadblocks to our communication pathways. You know, no, I don't want to tell that to that person, so on and so on. These are real things. These are real things, and we have to figure out. I think the message here is, what can I do? Because there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking going on and very little action. What we experience in our tribe is real similar to what's going on in the world today. So we're not unique. And I'm really inspired by the fact that it's the written word. You don't have to write it. I don't have to write it. He's already written it, and it serves as a guide.
Yeah, it's like marching orders. I see it like marching orders.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things in that chapter that I really like, first of all, what he's saying in this book is we're all being taken up in this change. Okay, whether we know it or not, we're all being taken up in massive change that's transforming. Some things are like falling apart, and other things are newly emergent. And one of the things that he's party to that I haven't been is he's got these, he calls them 3 groups of people. One group are the innovators. These are the technology wonks, you know, the Bill Gates and the people that, you know, that they really believe that whole technology vision, you know, with human intervention and they're real progress oriented. We can just apply AI, we can do this and all that. And that's countered by a lot of ecologists that say, yeah, but you guys have messed up in the past. What about the fact that we've overdone our the capacity of the earth, we've overshot that where we see the trends happening, you may not be doing this on time and you might not get it right. You haven't gotten it right for 200 years. How come you can think you can get it right now? You know?
Right.
And then there's a group that I think that I identify with, that I think that Patton really identifies. He calls them evolutionaries, which I think is a really neat term. We're revolutionaries, but not in the same sense. We're evolutionaries in that we have a sense of wholeness that's driving us. We don't quite understand all of its meaning, but we know it's there. And we know, we have faith that, very much that if we get it right, looking at, and that's where we understand a little bit about ecology, to say if we can get balance, then we can maybe balance the earth. We can do this.
Right.
And so there's this really call among the evolutionaries to bridge conversations, okay? And you talk about the family in the past. You've also talked about the human family, which is which is the family across the planet, where these conversations are going on. And when I just was listening to NPR interviews of 22-year-olds on This American Life about their freedom in China, their freedom in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And how all of these young 22-year-olds are being taken up in this conversation and, about their freedom. And the difference is how it's hard to talk to their family, family members in it. And some of them are even policemen that are there to keep the order. And of course, they're clashing, and they've been doing it for 20 weeks. 20 weeks they've been doing this.
That's amazing.
So I think that if we can develop a certain mental discipline that is a discipline not only of the head but of the heart, that we can be really good facilitators. And what was really interesting about Terry, you could say, well, look, if you got all these experts and they're already working on it, if you got the innovators doing their thing and you got the ecologists doing their thing, then what do they need us for? Well, they'll take care of it. And he says, if you really listen to these people, their egos are in the middle of it. They can't have a decent conversation sometimes with each other. Everybody's just talking over everybody else. Okay. And there's no conversation at all sometimes across these tribes of people, even though they're dead serious and they're doing really, really amazing work in their discipline. They have their own vocabulary. and their culture, is an exclusive one, with other ecologists or, other technology wonks. And then all of us have a sense, even, I would say as Black people, we have a sense of superiority among ourselves. Like we have a certain consciousness that we value. And, it's hard to break through that. And so we're being asked not only to make some changes in terms of what we do, but we're being called to make changes about how we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And I was having a conversation with a young dad yesterday, and he was talking about his child's homework. And I went, well, how's that going for you now that she's in the 3rd or 4th grade? He said, it's beyond me. I can get the answers to the questions, but not the way they do it today.
Yes.
And he was talking about her intellect at that young age and how she is her own person. And, back in the day when we were kids, I think the word was to be seen and not heard as a young person, and now it is, I ask him, so have you asked her what she's really thinking? And he said she has her own mind. I'm just here as kind of like the bumpers, to help guide her along her path.
You're a guide by the side instead of a sage on the stage.
That's exactly right. Beautifully said.
I'm so excited about, as a global person and as a educator, my dream is that what'll spill out of this is an education that can uplift humanity in such a way that we can come up to speed in time enough to make some important changes in our lives that can change the quality of life on the planet, and if not everything can be saved. We're already seeing people dying, right, from forest fires and losing their homes, but I'm seeing so many positive changes. And there's some other books that I want to talk about, but what we can do at this stage is just talk about the idea of having some decent conversations that show some humility on our part, meaning asking the questions, letting people really respond to that, listening to what they're doing and chiming off of them and taking that to another level, moving that forward if we can.
Mhm.
And
You know, I like what we're talking about in terms of boundaries and understanding more about ourselves and, you know, from whence we came. We all have these experiences from childhood, you know, ancestral
yeah,
situations, all the way to present. We are not who we were when we were 5 or 10 or 16 or 20 or whatever. We
yeah,
have constantly evolved. And just like in corporate, you know, we're taught to pause, to get the meaning of what is being said. We have sometimes have to set boundaries about turn your cell phones off. You know, I mean,
mhm,
it's how do you start the conversation from what do you want to talk about? How do we want to deal with this? So I
yes,
think Patton is re-instructing us and those
yeah.
that read the book about how to do that and have meaningful, sustainable conversations.
And he's learned by a whole bunch of mistakes that people continue to make. That humility that he's talking about, you know, particularly among professionals and people focusing on that, they develop a certain kind of, he calls it an eros, okay?
Right.
It's a certain kind of, um, he calls it epistemic closure as opposed to humility.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've been studying this for 30 years, and why are you going to come up here, you know? So, but we all need each other. So I see us as bridgers.
Absolutely. It's absolutely right. So it comes down to who are you listening to, really?
Yeah,
What are you listening for?
yeah,
And there's lots of opportunity to listen to many things, and
yeah,
either as an observer or a participant. And
yeah.
so we've got to decide.
And look, audience, we're doing this for you. So we're showing you this. We're recording this on YouTube, and you have a chance to kind of to give us feedback. What we need, which we think can serve not only us but you really, really well, is to have you be part of this conversation, because we all breathe the same air. Okay, we all need to thrive, and we need to do this even intergenerationally, not just I'm a boomer, she's a boomer, but we got kids and we got grandkids and we got generations of people to come, if that's possible. So I am so stoked if you will then at below this YouTube video, you can make some comments, you can send me some email, you can send us some text, and I encourage you to take a look at Terry Patton's book, you know, which I think is just a wonderful book. And I think it becomes some guidelines, almost from like guardrails for
Right.
having decent conversations that matter. And that's what that chapter is, conversations that matter, that I think we need to have. And that's a skill in order to be able to engage people in those conversations. You got to build trust. Yes, you have to you build that. But that's why we're going to do this week after week. We're going to do this. You know, count on us getting better at this and bringing in more very, very, very outrageously interesting people. We want to educate ourselves more about the ecological side of things, more about new innovations and stuff like that. I see a world-class conference, okay, even maybe a trade show that can communicate the value of some of the important work that people are already doing. And one of the things that he says is this change is actually in some sense a fait accompli, that it's we're
That's
already
correct.
being taken up in it already. You know, we're at, you know, in some part the movement is nascent, meaning that it's just very beginning. But on the other side, you feel like, gosh, I'm in a mid stage. Maybe that's because of your life. I'm mid, you know, some I'm kind of middle-aged, even being 73 years young right now, the way that things are. So I think we've got a really good opportunity to do a world of good. What do you think?
I'm 100% with you, and I'm really excited because I've been reading this book and doing some self-examination. I think that's what we all can do, and I can just tell how some of this is rubbed off on me in the way I was talking to the young man yesterday. It's like, so your daughter is here teaching you, and we
Yes.
agreed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's only 9 years old.
There
So
you go.
that was just really awesome to come to that awareness. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I hope that folks can respond, really seriously respond, and give us some topics to explore with some of the other folks that have great ideas and ways to build this and building blocks to share.
And yeah, and we know, and a lot of you are doing very, very important work. And if we can help you in your conversations with people, whether they're at work or whether they're at home, whether they're in the community with your group or whatever, we want to hear that, because I think by working collectively with each other, we can help. We can really hone that conversation and that look, and and really create some great YouTube video. I'm really excited about the idea of a program that we're doing. So this is really great. So anyway, stay tuned for next week. Next week, what we're going to do is go into the last chapter about It's Not Too Late, right? So
Exactly. I'm excited
and
about
we'll
that.
talk about what what the plan is there, and then we're going to really ask you for more ideas for things that we can cover and focus on and spread the good word about. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Okay?
Thank
See you
you,
later.
and have a great week.
All right, bye. Signing off right
Bye.
now.